So after 1890 or so, the Muslims came to acquire a very special status of minority people. And in 1904 or 1905, I think, they were given special constituencies. And they were made distinct people with distinct law, and people who were entirely different from Hindus. So, whatever uh, commonness that had existed in the last 600 to 700 years between the Hindus and Muslims, it was wiped out. And different personal laws were made for Muslims. Muslims were not operating or leading their lives according to exact Sharia law, even though they were Muslims. They had all kinds of customs which they followed. And even today, in what is called the Pansmanda Muslims, that is the Muslims who are not Ashraf or who don't claim themselves to be coming from Iran, Iraq, and Arabia, those Muslims, they have a way of life which is very much similar to and Hindus, and they share a huge number of rituals, customs, and activities. So all this was wiped out and made into separate compartments by British anthropology. So here you made the distinction that minorities would have special rights. So it is around 1905, then in 1920, uh, another thing was added. And this thing was that the Khilafat movement created a feeling of loyalty among Indian Muslims, not to the Indian continent or the Indian people, because at this time there was nothing like the Indian state. It was the British state. So not to the Indian continent or to the Indian people, but to somebody in Turkey. So support the Khalifa, who is several thousands of miles away, who has nothing to do with your life, whom you don't even know what is his name, and who has been discarded in Turkey by the Turkish people themselves, who has been deposed by Kemal Ataturk, who was creating a new Turkey, which was also supported by the British because he Europeanized Turkey. So a Khilafat movement was supported in India by our leaders like Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi very erroneously. And then you granted the right to the Muslims to support somebody thousands of miles away, and thus create a loyalty to the so-called Muslim Ummah or to the Khalifa. That is why the whole beginning of Muslim loyalty beyond the Indian borders got reaffirmed. You see, this did not exist earlier. The Mughal Empire was not loyal to any Khalifa sitting somewhere. I mean, they may send them gifts or they may send them a few things, but they were people who wanted to govern here. Although they were very conscious that they were separate from Hindus, that they had a superior right to govern because they were Muslims. So that discourse did exist, but they were not vassals or they were not followers of some foreign power who was sitting outside. There may be a notional acceptance of some kind of a Khalifa somewhere, but it was not a real thing. This notion, this acceptance of the Khalifa outside India was instigated. I'm using very consciously the word instigated by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and the Muslims were separated by the larger Hindu population in terms of identity, in terms of demands, in terms of ways of life. And they asserted a separate right because then they said that we are people who can trace our origin to some to a lineage which begins from outside India, to the Arabic world, to the Middle Eastern world. So this great attachment to the Middle Eastern world of the Indian Muslim was created 1920 onwards. And you find that this is the real bone of contention today. That is why you find that a Muslim will not name his son as Surya or as Sunil, but that he would go for a very, very Quranic name. He would, trying to find a name which is entirely connected to the Arabic tradition. So it should be an Arabic name. So this hinging upon Arabic culture as the origin of Islamic culture is a result of the anthropological and ethnographic studies that the British created. And then they created the concept of minorities.